There we are in focus. Hello, Dale Majors here. And today I want to talk to you about looking for big things and really thinking about if you're choosing big enough ambitions, if you're going after enough in life, because we really get what we ask for. There's so many stories and anecdotes about you get what you ask for, you get what you look for. If your friend buys a VW Bug and it's yellow, you're going to start seeing way more yellow VW Bugs, and you get what you look for. You get what you look for, you get what you ask for. And I've got several different stories that I want to use to really reinforce that point. And this is really for anybody that wants to maybe class hop a little bit, get a lot more results, way more results than you're currently getting. And I don't say that in a cheesy way of like, become way more successful than you could ever been, but more like the earnest way of the kind of conversation that I had this morning with one of my brothers. I'm not telling you this to say you should go do it. I'm saying we should go do this. This is what we should do. You know, I'm coming from the middle class, and not necessarily that I want to get out of the middle class financially, socially per se. Financially, I guess I'm already out of the middle class financially, but getting out of the middle class, looking for really big things. Growing up, I want to be a millionaire. Someday we'll make $1 million. I didn't even want that growing up, but that's what a lot of the people around me would want. Where if you're from a different class, it's more like, well, son, you go and do something where you get massive wealth, $100 million. And this point came to me in a few different ways over the last 2 weeks. First off, I'm reading the book Goals by Brian Tracy. Amazing book, so good. It's the most, I have 350 books in my Audible. If you deduct the 40 romance novels from my wife, not the crazy ones, but like the Maiden, the Spinners Club or whatever. Anyways, but I have so many self-help books, and Goals is my favorite. And I read it twice a year. Every time I read it, it just makes me think, dream bigger. Another thing with Russell Brunson lately, he's a big marketing guru, really smart, like really good guy. He talks about how he got a meeting with Tony Robbins and eventually became his business partner. And he started seeking after that huge thing like 10 years ago. Crazy. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. I went to this networking meeting on Tuesday. It's Friday today. On Tuesday, I went to a networking meeting, and there were I met a lot of people who were doing business, who were, mergers, acquisitions, people doing deals of $30 and $50 million. And I'm like, well, I sold my company for a few million. I'm looking at buying another company for $1 million. Like, there's certain things, that's where my head is. It's on that field. And I realized, Dale, you're in a different pond. Dale, in your button-up shirt, at least it's not a polo shirt like you used to wear, but everybody else is in suits. And these people are on a different level. And not that you necessarily need to go and wear suits or anything, but for me, actually, I thought, well, I need to decide how I want to portray myself and what pond I want to be in. So how do the people in different classes do things differently? And really, it all comes down to, are you asking for big enough opportunities? So, another point. If you were, one of the benefits that we have in middle class, especially lower middle class, one of the benefits that we have that a lot of people didn't get in some of these other ponds. So if we're sharks in the lower middle class, if we go into the new bigger pond, we're going to bring a whole skill set, a whole like Swiss Army knife of tools into that game. So I was at the Silicon Slopes Summit in Salt Lake, a mile from my house, in Farmington, I guess, with the Bohm sisters, 2 girls from Brazil that started the company together, selling apparel. They have like 15 plus stores, something. It's gone really well. And they said, what do you do when you're an immigrant family from Brazil? You clean commercial buildings. You clean buildings. So every day after school, my sister and I would clean buildings from 3 until midnight every day after school. My parents were getting paid minimum wage. We didn't get paid anything. And I'm getting some water. Look, so that's just what they did. They grew up with that intensity and the fire of, I've got my sound on like maximum, so sorry if you like went through my hydration process with me. So they went through this really hard thing growing up, working all the time. So when they got into their business, they had this intense, crazy work ethic that helped them through it. Growing up, I had a paper out, and I didn't have anything like they had, but we had a paper out growing up, and it was mostly my grittier younger brother that was doing it, but I had it for a while too. And when one of the kids was sick, sure enough, every month or two, my mom would wake us up and say, "Dale, can you come and do the paper out this morning?" And this is 5:30 for a kid that's growing, and you're tired. It was the worst thing ever. But we got used to shoveling crap, basically, by doing paper outs are hard work. I wrestled in high school. That was 4 years of every winter of not seeing the sun and just running around and wrestling with a bunch of other dudes, getting tired, beat up. It was really hard. If we can take those skills from the lower and middle class and put them into that sort of grit, put that into the game when we go play in the bigger and larger deals, then I think that's going to really mean something. So Russell Brunson had on his Dream 100 list. If you don't know about the Dream 100, you can look it up. It comes from the book, The Ultimate Selling Machine or Ultimate Sales Machine, that basically says you pick your 100 dream clients and then you run a campaign to go after them. You're sending them gifts. You're doing lots of creative, great things to get in touch with them. So Russell Brunson, he goes after Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is like the world's most renowned life coach. He's insane, and he's insanely good and insanely hard to reach. I think he owns like 50 businesses. He has 1,400 employees. He has $1 billion enterprise, and he's the guy in his space. So Russell says, he had a story on YouTube about it. He figures out who are all the people who know him. These are the people that live next to him in San Diego. He started buddying up to those people and learning about them. He eventually met Tony Robbins, went to a conference, was part of the VIP thing, had some interactions, and then he kept working at that. Eventually had, and I forget the exact timeline, but he eventually got on a call with him. He eventually helped him, sell one of his books through a funnel, and then he was invited to his island in Fiji, and then he spoke at one of Tony Robbins' seminars, and at the end, Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, they start Mastermind.com, which they couldn't get the URL for it, and Russell bought the URL for $600,000 and gifted it to Tony Robbins, and in turn, those guys made him a partner in Mastermind.com, which is insane. So I don't necessarily, I think Russell is amazing and has a great story, and he's fun to watch and fun to follow. That space, the whole space of all the coaching and whatever else that I'm also getting into is, there's a lot of navigating that's been interesting. It can be kind of sketchy and I think scammy and spammy, so there you go. But the thing that I draw the most inspiration from Russell, and where he's really inspirational, is that he set his sights so high. If you set your sights really high right now and said, I'm going to partner with Tony Robbins, how many people would laugh us out in our networks? And the reality is we turn into the people that we spend the most time with, or we think like them and everything else. So a lot of times we may not get that much support. So I think that's why when I think about really successful people that I know, a lot of times they're much more stubborn, they're much more my way or the highway, and I think you need those elements so they can shut out all of the pressures from from society and from their friends. They're like, hey, screw it, I'm going to do this anyways. So I think if we want to class hop, if we want to really go to a different place than we're in today, then we're going to have to, first off, think a lot bigger, be more stubborn, continue to root in these goals that we have, create goals that take us to a whole other place. One thing that I've started doing recently on the suggestion of a friend, and Brian Tracy told me to do this 10 years ago in his book. I haven't met Brian yet. I need to add him to my Dream 100 list. Brian, I want to meet you. He's amazing, amazing book. He says, write down your goals every single day. And I think what that does is it helps cement you into your dreams and vision, and it helps make it more of a reality for you, so you have to stick to it and keep going. We can get what we think about all the time. We can eventually make it there. Brian Tracy says you become what you think about most of the time. But if we continually root in that, and like I said, for the last month, I've been reading my goals every single day in the morning, 70% of the time. Sometimes you wake up late, sometimes things happen. But I've made that part of my daily routine, is looking at my goals, reading my values, reading inspirational quotes, and really just firming up and saying, I need to spend time on these types of things. They don't all have to do with class hopping, but the thought has really come to me that we can be wherever we want to be, but we're going to end up if we don't fight the inertia that is pushing us, just the inertia of society, it's strong. If we don't fight against it, then we're just going to keep going downstream with them. So I talk to a lot of my coaching clients about, are you in the driver's seat? Are you in the passenger seat? Are you in the back seat, third row? Are you in a bag in the trunk? And I think in different areas of our life, we're in different places. Maybe some people for health and nutrition, they're just in the third row, sipping a cola, and they're like, I don't know or care. I'm just doing my thing. I eat what is put in front of me. There's other people that are absolutely in the driver's seat and really controlling that. But they may be in the back seat when it comes to their family or to their hobbies or whatever. So I think we have to decide, are we in the driver's seat with our fitness? Are we in the driver's seat with our appearance? Are we in the driver's seat with our family and so on, with our spirituality? So what did I miss? There's a lot of stuff we learn in the small pond. We can go to the bigger one. Honestly, and this made me want to start a cleaning company, I may get a 5-hour job a week with my kids that I have to take my kids to and make them think that that's what pays for our vacations, just so I can clean with my kids and teach them some of that work ethic, because paper routes aren't really a thing anymore. Adventurous, how do we identify? Okay, last thing. In the book, so this is a habit book by Atomic Habits. I forget the guy that wrote it, but he talks about changing our identity. And my mom was great at this. She says, we majors, we don't do that. We don't need coats. If you're not cold, you don't need to wear a coat. But she has all these identity things, and identity is really strong. Does that even make sense? Brian Tracy talks about how you should write your goals down in the present tense. I make $100,000 a year. I am a healthy person, whatever, right? So for me, I think I don't snooze. I'm not the kind of guy that snoozes. Or I say, am I the kind of guy who? We change our identity. I was talking to one of my friends 2 days ago who said, Dale, this kind of seems funny, but one of the things that made me want to change my fitness was I get paid kind of like a professional athlete. He is a very successful trainer, essentially, okay? He's like, I get paid really well to do what I do, and I figure that I should look the part. And so he changed his identity. I am fit. He cut out a lot of sugar. He started doing more exercise, and he looks a lot better. So how are the people acting that have what we want to have? And we have to change our identity to be like them. In Christianity, they have those rings that say, choose the right, or better, what would Jesus do, right? We want to change our identity to be more like whoever we admire or aspire to be. So if we want to be like someone amazing, then, I wore t-shirts in my first videos, and I thought, And I'm just weird and stubborn, have always had bad fashion taste. But I realized I probably ought to start looking better. And not in a vain way, but just in a, I want to show up, I need to be more classy. And that's the thought I've had. So let us be like Russell when he goes after these big things. We are capable of it. A lot of times we're just not getting into the right ponds. So think about the pond you're in, and let's think about the pond that we're in. And as we go fishing, are we going fishing in the right ponds? Are we in the right bodies of water where the real opportunity that we want is waiting for us? And that has been what I've been thinking about. So I hope it's helpful. If you have any tips on how to think bigger, or other things that you've done, there's a book called, I think, The Magic of Thinking Big. But let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to have you here, and I will see you on the next video. Happy Friday.